Awesome. Well, thank you, Asia, for kicking off us here. I know we got a couple people here. Eydi, we're gonna cover, I guess we'll kind of do some introductions before we start to give people a little bit of time to join, right?
Yep, we can go ahead and do that.
We'll do that. And the focus for today will be on reporting. So our goal is to start talking about some of the reports available in Lead Docket. We're going to share some tips and tricks of how to maybe export and create custom reporting. I also want to talk a little bit more about the biggest confusion around reporting that we hear a lot, which is which date is being used to run your report. That's the biggest thing that we hear often. Lead Docket users like complaining and asking, and they're actually not understanding the distinction between a date dimension is what that's called. So we'll talk about that today. We have a few people joining, so we'll give them a couple more minutes to join. Eydi, I think it might be good for us to introduce ourselves. I know there's always new people kind of joining our webinar that may not know what we're doing or who we are. So I'll start really quickly. If you haven't joined previous webinars, this is kind of a free help session. I'm going to say this again in a few minutes, but please feel free to send your questions. This is supposed to be a full-on free flow session where you ask your questions. We're going to pivot. We can share our screens. You can share your screen if you want, and we can kind of go in and do a dive into whatever issues that you guys are having. It's supposed to be a free help session that can be helpful for everybody. I'll just introduce myself briefly. I've been with Vine Skills for over a year now. My background is in the marketing and sales side. I come from ad agencies and that kind of crazy world of commercial advertising stuff. I went into the legal field. I worked as a marketing intake director for a law firm. We did a lot of personal injury. We did some employment, some other things in there. It's a fairly high volume, about 100 and something people on that team. And I worked in that firm for a little bit in the legal space, and then went to another firm in Washington for a little bit also as a marketing director, and then now at Vine Skills. So I've been using Lead Docket for a little bit, and we all our focus is fully Lead Docket. Got Eydi and myself, and there's Shade as well, who won't be able to join today, but our focus is fully in Lead Docket. So all we do is help clients with Lead Docket. Eydi, you want to introduce yourself briefly? And then we'll kind of dive in.
First, I have to unmute myself. But hi, everyone. My name is Eydi. I come from the personal injury background. I manage an intake team for a PI firm. And I believe we implemented Lead Docket about early last year. That's how I learned about the system. As a manager, it was up to me to kind of customize Lead Docket and figure out all the ins and outs for the team so that we could better utilize the system. So started becoming a fan of the system in itself, and now I'm here at Vine Skills, and I am implementing the Lead Docket for firms. So that's a little about my background. So my background is in intake.
That's right. So then let's start without further ado. We have a few people already here, so we will just start diving into reporting. That's the main kind of focus for today. I'm going to open my Q&A, so if any questions come in, Eydi, also feel free to stop me. And if I can address questions as they come in. I'm going to also start sharing my screen, and we are going to go through some of these. So you can't see it just yet. Now, all right, so I'm in Lead Docket here. I think first thing that I want to start saying, I want to show you a few reports that are in Lead Docket that are very useful. Very helpful if you're trying to gauge your firm's performance, how things are going. What I want to do is pull up the first report I want to pull up is this one. You cannot see it. Hold on. I'm going to get there. Here it is. You go to reports. First report that I would want to talk about is one that I like the most, which is this leads over time. So if you go in Lead Docket, if you're in their Lead Docket, you see reports here on the left side. By the way, if you don't see reports for whatever reason, if you click here and if you go in Lead Docket and you don't see reports over here, it's just because of a permission thing. So you may want to talk to whoever is managing your Lead Docket, because you need to have a certain permission to be able to see reports. So if you scroll down onto this statistics box, there's a few in there that I really like. This leads over time. I want to spend a little bit of time on this one, because this one, if you understand it, it really tells you a lot. First reason why mine is all blank and stuff like this is because the first thing that you want to see is when is this being reported on. Right now, it's talking about leads over time this month. My lead docket is a demo lead docket. So our leads are actually all old for last year. We have a lot of leads in 2022 just because that's a demo data that we have. So this is what it should look like for you when you open this up. And I could go into a little bit more granular kind of time. If you say, oh, I want to do it from, let's do a sample here from 1/1/2022, which is what I have. To let's do like 5, 6, 7 months. I'm gonna do 7/1/2022. So the first thing to think about is your date range. This would look something like this on your screen, and happy if you want to kind of follow along on your side. Then I'll show you a couple of things that are interesting here. This is the first report, is daily leads. I personally don't like this one as much as I like the weekly leads. And just because the variations are easier to see here in the weekly than it is in the daily. And all that it is literally what the title says, right? Every day it spikes up and down and things like this, as opposed to this one, which gathers them by week. And if you hover over it, or if you see it at the bottom here, this is the week of 4/3 to 4/9, and it combines them all on that one. So that week, I had 3 signed, I had 6 wanted, and 68 leads. Does that make sense? I think that's the overall idea of this report, is that it's showing you week over week, how many leads, how many wanted, and how many signed. Pretty straightforward. Now, let's get a little bit more into how to read this report. The idea here, obviously, is you can spot some clear trends, ups and downs here, right? So I can see a clear trend up on this leads line here on this 3 or 4 weeks. That's one kind of takeaway of this, is just trends up and down. But what I want to call attention is one of the things that are meaningful here is the gap between the first line and the second line, and the second line and the third line. Because what that gap means is the effective of your marketing strategies. So let me explain that. For example, here's a good example. This 2 weeks. This week we got 43 leads and 21 were wanted. The following week, my marketing did something right that got more leads, right? So the marketing brought 58 leads instead of 43. That's a big increase in the marketing leads. But my wanted leads went down 1. So what does this mean, this gap? You see how the gap widened? When the gap widens, that means your marketing is being less efficient. You're bringing more leads, but you're not bringing more wanted leads. I hope that makes sense, right? So if you want to see a rise on your leads, you also want to see a rise on your wanted leads. That would be an efficient marketing, right? You're bringing more leads and you're bringing more wanted leads with it. Now, it's important to make sure that you are classifying your wanted leads in your lead docket properly. And that might be a first question that we would get here is, I'm going to open another tab here to show you. If you're not doing this, you can, in your lead docket, define what a wanted lead is. By default, if you haven't done that, by default, you've seen this term wanted leads thrown around in lead docket. What this does by default is calculate all the leads that are not referred out or rejected. That's the default definition of wanted leads in lead docket. So what this is doing here is telling you all the leads that are wanted by that definition, not referred out or rejected. If you want to customize that, you can. Right now, this came with the custom statuses, by the way. At the point that you start to be able to customize your statuses, we now have this page that's statuses over here. And this page gives you the ability, if you can see here, there's a column that says wanted. And what that means is if you say, oh, I hear a lot, for example, firms that says, well, if it's on hold, it's not really a wanted lead. So you could go in hold and unclick your wanted, right? So you can customize this inside your lead docket. Be mindful if you're using some external reporting tool, like a Domo or even our lead docket dashboard, any other external reporting tool, you may need to make that update with that tool as well. So don't just go out and edit everything and not tell anybody, because that's going to break some of your external reporting. So that's it. This is a parenthesis that I wanted to make here to talk about wanted leads and how you can define what a wanted lead is. That being said, let's go back to this graph, because this is the graph that when I was actively managing a team in a law firm, that's what I had open on a window the entire time. Every week, that's what I'm looking at in lead docket. Again, because I can see the performance of the marketing, I can see the efficiency of the marketing, which is this gap between those two lines. But there's another interesting information here, which is the gap between these two lines, the signups and the wanted. So let me explain that again. The idea is this week here, we had 21 wanted leads and we signed 4. So that's what, 25% or a little less than that of a conversion rate. That's what it's a measure of your intake's ability to close or to sign up leads. So the gap of these first 2 lines is the efficiency of your marketing. The gap of your second lines is the efficiency of your intake or your sales. So you got 21 wanted leads and you signed 4 of them. That's how efficient your intake is doing. Now, the following week, you see how this gap narrowed a little bit? What this means is that your intake got better. You had 20 leads, but you signed 8 out of them. So any narrowing of this line means your intake is closing or signing up more leads that are wanted. Those are probably the 2 biggest measurements of performance for your marketing and sales. Top one is marketing efficiency. Second one is your sales conversion. And that's the difference between these 2 lines right here. So you see, like there are some clear kind of things that you can take away from something like this. And this is a data that we got from a couple of firms that allowed us to use data for demo purposes. We anonymized the data, so it's not really anything that we can identify who that is. But this is an example of a really bad marketing campaign they launched. So they launched a big marketing campaign. A bunch of leads started to come up. They literally like duplicated or more the number of leads they were getting, but the wanted line almost didn't move. That's a sign of a marketing campaign that was bringing the wrong type of cases. So yeah, you can tell that right from the graph right here. Marketing campaign stopped, and then they changed that marketing campaign and did a better job. And when you see a better marketing campaign, the wanted lead starts to climb with that marketing campaign. And then something happened in here, and you can see like marketing is going up, but the wanted it hasn't. So there's something that needs to be looked at in terms of that performance. There's also, obviously, I'm kind of simplifying in the sense that we're only looking at the big picture at this point, right? You have to dive into more details to be able to understand what is going on in there exactly. They're not always going to climb together, these two lines. There is a diminishing effect, right? Where you hit diminishing returns law here, where if you have 100 leads and you have 50 wanted, doesn't mean that you'll get 200 leads and 100 wanted, right? It doesn't always go back the same thing. There is a diminishing return as you increase your marketing. So this graph is very telling. I'm going to go ahead and widen this a little bit so we can see another interesting example of something in this data. So right here is a good example of another trend that happened in this data set, which is you can see your wanted leads started to eventually climb up, right? There's a dip in here. Maybe there's a couple of weeks. When it's something like a couple of weeks, it's not as concerning. This could be a holiday. This could be something that is out and the marketing got disconnected for a week or something like this. So I'm not as concerned about if it's a week or two of a drop. But then you can see in this case, actually, the data shows that intake right around this time did something and started to be a lot more efficient. So look at what the difference between these two lines have been here, right? It's always been around half here. 36 wanted, 16 signed. 22, 8. 28, 10. Even a third here, right? 28, 10 again. So the efficiency of your intake, the conversion here is about a third, 30 to 45% conversion. They did something in their intake staffing, in their intake strategy, and look at how this gap starts to narrow. They're now signing 18 out of 31. When they signed 12 out of 35, they're signing 18 out of 31. They're signing 26 out of 31, 30 out of 36. So that becomes, that is a sign of a much more efficient intake. Now I'm doing all of that analysis based on these three lines, right? That's the idea, is you can analyze a lot of your performance based on these three lines on this graph. So let me know if there's any questions about this. I'm going to move on to another graph, but I think this one is worth spending some time because this is the one graph that I would leave it open to analyze trends in the marketing and trends in the intake or the sales side. So I definitely recommend you leave it open. When you go in there, you can set it to like this year is what I would do. So you can see a bigger picture, and then scroll down to your weekly leads, and you will see a graph that looks something like what I'm seeing in here. If you scroll down, just so you know, I mean, you can see also some leads by day of the week. This is also helpful, but in my opinion, you're probably going to see some variation of exactly what you see on my screen. Most firms that I've worked with get more leads on Monday. And that's just a kind of a known thing. So it's not that big of a surprise for anybody that Mondays are your best days, and it kind of dies down throughout the week. So this to me seems like a very standard deviation. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, these are leads by hour of the day, which is an also interesting report. This one can vary a little bit more depending on a few things, depending on demographics, depending on, are your leads at work during the day, are they not, depending on case types. This one can vary. But in this case here, you can see that most of the leads were coming in around 3 p.m. or towards the afternoon was the best day of the week. And this can be helpful for staffing. So if you have it up, pull it up on your screen, you can see there might be some hints to where should you staff your intake based on that graph. So that's graph number 1, in my opinion. I'm gonna move on to a couple of others that I would like to share, but guys, feel free to send questions or any requests if you want me to cover some specific reporting things. Let's go to another interesting report that I want to just point out. This exists. In my opinion, for some firms, it works really well. For some firms, it may not. But this is statistics by role. Again, let me go back to show you. I'm in the reports page. I go into the statistics by role report. And this is an interesting report for you to measure your intakes capacity. I'm going to go ahead and put that on 2022 because that's when my data is. So you will see something like this on your report. You'll see all of your intake team, and this could be changed if you want to see by other roles. If your firm maybe has more of an investigator role that you're using, you'll be able to tweak that to investigator. But by default is an intake in there. And what it does, it shows you every user that has that role, how many leads they have assigned to them, how many are wanted, how many are lost, rejected, referred, and so on. If you want to understand what this is, like appointment, lost, referred, you can click on definitions, and it's going to show you just a brief kind of description of what that number is. So that will give you a sense of capacity for your intake. You're able to look at, okay, Ivan here is handling a lot more leads than Shade, and their conversion percentage are fairly different. So you'll be able to compare them. Our data doesn't work that well because our numbers here are all skewed. Most of our leads are under this Vine Skills team user, which we don't recommend if you have in your firm, if you have like an intake team user where you use an intake team email, that you're going to get this issue. Is if you have multiple people using that same user, you're not going to have visibility into what are they doing and how do they compare to each other. So we definitely don't recommend this type of use of users. So that being said, take a look at this, see how they compare to each other. Look at this conversion percentage is one of my favorite topics in here. These are gonna do wanted and signups. So I'm signing up 10 out of 35. So my conversion percentage is 46%. Okay, that's the logic behind conversion percentage. And if you click in here, it's gonna show you that sign up or close divided by wanted leads. I would say for many firms, this number is gonna work. For some firms, it won't. And the reason is, maybe there's some gap where people have different roles, or they may have the wanted may not be properly captured. So this number may or may not work for your firm, but it's a really interesting number to get. And if it doesn't work, let's talk about why and how you can fix it, right? You could fix this to get this number to be a good measure of your intake team's performance. All right, that is statistics by role, and we talked about leads over time. Those, in my opinion, are two of the big ones. I'm going to cover marketing source, but Eydi, also feel free to chime in if you want to point out any other reports. I know I have my favorites, but everybody's got their own favorites. We'll talk about marketing source for a little bit, and then I want to cover just how to create a custom report that you can export out of Lead Docket. All right. Marketing source. Let's talk about this one. And in this one, I'm going to say last year, first of all, so I can see our data is last year. In this one, I want to talk about a clear confusion that always happens when you're talking about reporting, which is leads by sign up date versus lead by created date. When you're looking at this report and when you're looking at this, here, I'm going to open this. I'm going to open this up. Maybe I can even show an example. No, I don't think I'll have an example on our data. When you're looking at these numbers right here at the top, when you're looking at signups this month versus leads this month, these two numbers are coming from two different dates. Let me explain that. If you say I've got 100 leads this month and I sign up 50 leads this month, it does not mean that you sign up 50 out of the 100, because those two numbers are using two different dates to be calculated. What this means is that this month you sign up 100 leads that were created this month, but no, sorry, it means that you created 100 leads. You had 100 leads this month. But when you say I sign up 50 leads this month, it means you signed up 50 leads that may not have been created this month. They could be created the previous month. They could be created before that. So it just means that you put 50 leads under the sign up status during this period. So those two numbers are not apples to apples, right? They are comparing two different date ranges. So I recently had a client call me and had this same issue where they come in here into my marketing source and say, okay, my leads in this marketing source are not matching my leads that I see here on my report. It says I sign up 100 leads this month. I go to my marketing source report and it doesn't say my 100 leads. It says a different number. So Lead Docket is wrong and the reporting is all broken. Well, it's not. And the reason is, in this report, the marketing source, you're looking at created date. You're not looking at signed up date. So what this means is that you're looking at the leads created last year, not signed up last year. This is a really common confusion around reporting issue, is what date are you using to run your report? And almost all reports are going to have a date. You're talking about, oh, this month, something, last week, something. There's always going to be a date range. That date range in the reporting world is called a dimension on your database side. And you need to be using some date to reference by. It could be the created date. It could be the sign up date. Those are the most common ones. There's always other ones that you can use, but that's a common confusion that you can have here. And I will say this, even if you go into the filter here and say signed leads, it's still looking at your signed leads by created date, not by sign up date. Hope that kind of makes sense. I know every time I explain this, kind of some heads will spin, but the idea is always keep in mind which number you're looking at, because they're going to mean different things. I would love to see, okay, I have 100 leads this month, and I want to see out of these 100 leads that I got this month, how many did I sign up? Well, to get that number, you want to look at your sign up numbers by created date. You're looking at the 100 leads created this month. How many did I sign up? That's one valuable number to know. The other number is this month, I had 100 leads. How many did I sign up this month, regardless of when they were created? Then you're talking about signups by sign up date. I just want to point one other thing so you can see it. When you go into your lead docket, and if you're looking at this top boxes in here, if you click on this number, you're going to see right at the top, it's going to show you your sign and close leads by sign up date, which is what I'm always talking about. So you're going to see it right at the top saying this report is by signed up date. There's no right and wrong here. That's another thing to keep in mind. It's not like, oh, Lead Docket doesn't work because it's doing this. It does. It's just that it has two different kind of purposes for this type of data. So just keep in mind that you're looking at sign up leads by the sign up date this month. And they actually put it twice in here. By sign up date this month, by sign up date. To really make sure that you understand that this is by sign up date. And that is, you can change that also. Like you can come in here, and if you go into a different mode, it's going to change that at the top. Okay, so that's a leads report that you can run in there. So I want to point that out because that's often a point of confusion between signups and conversion rates. One last thing that I want to touch today is, well, let me see. I don't know. I want to stop a little bit for questions, but I don't know if there's anybody who wants to ask anything. Or are you trying to get a number in your lead docket and you want to know, how do I find out such and such in my lead docket? How do I get a report to show me my marketing sources by, you know, contact source, or conversion rate by marketing source, or things like that? That is, feel free to send any requests like that, and I can walk you through. I could even record a quick portion of that as a separate video that can go to you and becomes your training tool or your training video if you want to do this later as well. All right, let's go back to reports. I would like to cover now, how do you export reports and customize them? My first note here is that Lead Docket has all of these reports available right off the box. When you buy them, they're all in here already. And there's several really great reports in here that you definitely want to explore. I definitely recommend playing around, looking at leads in different places, looking at a bunch of things that they have kind of ready-made. You just click it and the report is up. If you want to say, I want to pull a report that says the specific columns that I want in my file vine, in my lead docket, then you want to look at this exports leads report. This may be your most powerful report in here. The first thing you want to do is you want to go here and say show more filters, and then you will see that you get a lot of filters in here. I'm going to show you one thing that I often do, which is I want to pull a report and then I want to analyze my marketing sources. I want to see, you know, how many leads I got from each marketing source, and I want to have some better, you know, information there. If anybody has any questions on what I want to see, I can actually run it here and show you how to, but I'll do a simple one. What I would like to do when I'm exporting a report, you can do two things. You can either run a big data dump of all the data in your lead docket and get it all out with all the columns, with all the statuses, and then filter it later in Excel or Google Sheets. And to do that, that's what I would normally do for these types of Excel work, is I would come in here and I would say, give me all the leads since 2000, because I know that that's like the beginning of my intake. So just go all the way back and pull the entire lead docket database. If your lead docket is large and you have thousands and thousands of leads, this is not going to work. It's going to have some limits. You have to be able to do it like, think of it 3 months, or there's a certain number of roles. For larger clients, you want to break this down a little bit more. For our demo, I think I only have a couple thousand leads in here, so it's not going to be a big deal. I'm going to select the entire thing. I'm not going to filter by any other filters in here. I'm just going to run and click here, download Excel report. Yes. You have to figure out which columns do you want. If you leave it standard columns, it's going to pull a standard set of columns. That is a bunch of columns in your report. And that actually works really great. And there's a lot of really good columns in there. But what I normally do is I come in here and I build an output of columns. This is where you can customize the report to give you whatever you want. So for example, here's one that Shade did. And it shows, if I click here, it's a report that pulls the contact ID, the file volume project ID, and the full name. That's it. The report's going to have 3 columns with this information in it. So if you want to create your own, I have one, for example, here that is like a marketing info. I like to use that. I pull a bunch of information that I care about for my marketing reporting. So I'm going to just run this for now, and then I'll come back and show you how to customize that. So I'm going to get the marketing campaign, marketing info. I'm going to run that report. It's going to generate it. It's saved on my computer. What I would recommend you do, I want to show you a trick on this, is I have it here on my Google Sheets, but you can do the same thing in Excel if that's what you use. You open that report and it looks something like this. It has the status, it has the marketing information, the severity level. I put a bunch of columns, right? These are the columns that I put in there. Then I would normally name that as a database or a source data. And then you can run in here and create a pivot table. Create that pivot table, put it in a new sheet. And if you're not familiar with pivot tables, I definitely recommend you get familiar with them because they're awesome. And you're gonna, for example, say, I'm going to count my leads by marketing source. I just built a report right here. These are my marketing sources and how many leads I got from that marketing source. And I could also add, I have a column here for signed leads. So I can see out of this one, how many are signed. I can calculate my conversion for each marketing source right here in this pivot table. Now, what is the benefit of doing this? Is that I can save this document in Excel or in Google Sheets. And then next week or next month, when I want to update this report, I go into Lead Docket, I save this report settings right here, save the settings, name it, and run the same report again, go into Google Sheets and replace this database with the new report. When I replace the database, all of my pivot tables, all of my charts and everything get updated. So this is like the poor man's dashboard solution, is you're doing a manual update on this database, and then your pivot tables will get automatically updated as you import new data. So you can save this. I mean, you could look more into like a macro or some other tools in Excel, but the idea is you can have an Excel file or a Google Sheets file that has all the calculations and it has all the pivot tables and the graphs built, and you just replace the source data in that sheet. I hope that makes sense. That is a trick for repeating reports. Every month, I need to send this report to somebody. Well, you build it once, and then you just update it manually into that spreadsheet to have that report, done again. And again, you could do something like we built stuff that you can build multiple pivot tables. You can build graphs out of these pivot tables. You can do a lot that all get automatically updated as you go here. So when you update the database, all the graphs and all the stuff here gets updated as well. So I want you to show that trick, but let me go back now to your leads report, and I want to show you another thing is how do you customize this column set? If you go to manage column, you can give your column a name, test, and then select columns. It's going to give you every column in your lead docket is going to be in here, right? Even the questions, see how these are questions from my intake. I can click here and see where you at fault of the accident. Or incident date or state. any field in your lead docket can be reported in here. You just add them to these columns and save it. And that report that you run is going to have whatever information are in those two fields. So that's how you will choose your column output in here. Are there any questions? Let's see. This is a really powerful report. Again, another thing to keep in mind is if you leave intake date, you're talking about the intake and the created date. If I want to see leads that I signed up this month, you can do it by sign up date. I can say, okay, sign up in this period of time. Change the date filter, pull that a different database, okay? So just be mindful of an intake date here at the top versus a sign up date or versus a chase date or something like this. So you want to see how many leads were put in chase this week. Then you would use a chase date or a lost date. How many leads were lost this week? You can use a lost date. That's for more granular report. Okay, I'm going to start wrapping it up. I know we're getting close to the end. If there are no questions on this, I hope this helped in some way. Again, we covered the leads over time report. We covered the statistics by rule report. We covered the marketing source report and the distinction between created date and sign up date. And then we also covered how to export a leads report that can then be put in Excel or Google Sheets to be updated with pivot tables and graphs as well. I didn't go into the details of how to do that, but I think you guys got it. That's basic kind of spreadsheet work in here as well. If no further ado, Eydi, did I miss anything, or I think I covered the most important ones?
No, I think we could talk about once you create those reports, you also have the option to schedule them.
Great
be
point.
able to go out. So you don't have to run them every single time. You can actually just schedule those reports. If you want them to go out weekly or monthly, you can schedule those to go out.
Great idea. Yeah, I forgot that completely. So again, let me just go back really quickly to show this. If you go to leads report, you can choose a saved report. See how you have a saved reports. If you don't have a saved report, just go in here, build your report, get the data and click save report settings. You save the report in there. Once that report is saved, you have to do that step first before you can schedule a report. You save a report first, then you go back to reporting and schedule reports, and it's going to allow you, okay, let's add a new report. It's going to say, okay, is active, what's the template? That's where you pick your saved report. See how I had a marketing campaign export. You can determine the recipients. This can be multiple emails that can receive this. Just use a semicolon in here. You can set it to multiple people. The date range, an important thing. The date range for emailed reports is defined here, not on your saved report. So even if your saved report was showing like something like that this month or a certain period of time that you specifically designed, it's going to get override by this one. This date range is going to overwrite that report. Then you pick the time and pick the interval. It's either daily or weekly right now in Lead Docket. And then when you create that report's going to get sent on I get this every Monday. I don't really want it, so I'm going to go ahead and stop it from sending it to me every day. So that is, see how it says disabled schedule reports, they're all set in here. So good point. Thank you, Eydi, for reminding me of that. That is Well, I want to mention this one because this one I use all the time when we're setting up an opportunity for clients who have integrations, and they want to say, well, I want to see all my leads that Alert sent me this month, or Engage web chat, or Lex reception, or whatever the firm that you're using. Say, I want to see which leads they sent me. You can go into this opportunities report. Again, it's on the reports right in the middle. It says opportunities list. You pick your integration. If this was properly set up, you would have one integration per vendor, per source that you have. That's how it should be set up. And then you go in there, pick your Apex chat or pick your, Alert communications and run the report, and you see all the leads that were generated through that integration. Okay. Regardless of what they are right now, even if they move to a different marketing source, the opportunity source still holds through in here. So that's a really helpful report as well. So with no further ado, I think we can wrap things up. I want to say one last thing, important thing, is we have created, if you guys haven't seen this, we have created a Lead Docket group in LinkedIn, on LinkedIn. So we have a Lead Docket users group in LinkedIn, and that group has been picking up some traction, and it's a great place for everybody who has a question and they don't want to send it to us, or we're taking a little bit too long to reply because there's a lot going on. If you post something on that LinkedIn group, the replies are being almost immediate. So questions on your Lead Docket as you're using it, I would highly recommend posting it to the Lead Docket group. I don't know. I'm going to see if we can post something in here on our chat, maybe. Here, I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. I don't think I can do that to everybody. AJ may help us with this one. How do we send them the link to the group in LinkedIn? Because that group has been really cool. That's been a really cool traction in there. There's a lot of nice activity going on in there. So definitely recommend it. We'll send you a link because I'm now lost in my link world. But we'll send it to you after this call. I would highly recommend going in there. Leave that as your Q&A, like help for whatever reason that you may need. Post a question in there, and then people are answering it pretty quickly, which is really awesome. So we want to create a little bit of a Lead Docket user community. I think that's gonna be super beneficial for everybody, and then everybody can help each other with questions, and it will just be better for everyone. So watch out for something that comes after this call, or at some point we'll send you a link to a LinkedIn. If you go on LinkedIn and search for Lead Docket, you might find that group in there. Also, next month we're gonna have our webinar next month is gonna be focused on the connection between Filevine and Lead Docket. That's the topic for next month's free help session. We're going to talk about what fields push from Lead Docket to Filevine, what fields don't, how do you check for things that got pushed, what are the errors that can happen when you don't push right, or what are the fields that push back into Lead Docket, and all things like that. So that's the topic for next month's webinar. Again, thank you guys for joining. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up, go on the LinkedIn group and give us a thumbs up on it, and we'll always answer things in there as well. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, AJ, for organizing.